hiring, humanizing interactions. And I think as AI and automation become commonplace, that's going to be necessary. Our guest today, our host today is Mike Cohen. You probably know him as Batman. And you can probably ask him, all about that. So Mike's super savvy with HR tech tools, but I think, his real move is, the combination that he does with EQ, with emotional intelligence, combining both things up. So Mike, over to you. Let's just, go through this combination and, what your secret potion's like.
Fantastic. Thanks everybody for joining. Super interactive. So by all means, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to just jump in. You can unmute or you can type your questions. I'd prefer just unmute and interrupt me. I'm from New York, so we basically speak in interruptions and sarcasm. So I'm going to share my screen and I am going to go through a little bit about how I approach searches. And how I approach reaching out to candidates. So I typically, just to give you some background, I am typically reaching out to candidates and getting somewhere between a 40 and a 55% response rate. And one of the big reasons is I try to use a very EI-centric approach to my outreach emails. So I want to go through, we'll start a little bit with like, what is emotional intelligence, right? Because everybody always says, use EI, and it's like, yeah, I mean, great, but what does that really mean, right? So let's start really basic, right? Like, what is an emotion, right? So when you look it up online, it's nebulous, to say the least, right? But this third bullet point really brought up a lot of relevance for me, right? It's a mental reaction to things you subjectively experience, accompanied by physiological and behavioral changes, right? That's a really, really important thing to note. It's not just what you experience, but it's how your body and behavior change, right? So what are the emotions, right? Because everybody can name an emotion, right? There's 34,000 of them, but like, what are the core emotions? The ones that we can actually predict behavior and action off of? It's actually this middle circle here you'll see that says anger, anticipation, joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, and disgust. These are going to be the ones that elicit the most reaction. They're the core emotions that we feel. As we move out, we start feeling little less versions of them, right? More watered down. As we move in towards the middle, that's at the extreme height. So important to know this. This is Platchuk's, I always say this wrong, Wheel of Emotions, if you want to look this up. Really great just to understand kind of what you're going in with. And I can tell you, of these emotions around here, can anybody guess what the top two to elicit responses are? Nobody. Yeah, see that? The top two, believe it or not, for actually generating response from people is joy, right? Happiness, and also fear. So keep that in mind when you're reaching out, because it may sound really twisted or wrong to think of using something like fear as a guiding factor, but it's not fear in the way that people think about it. And we're going to cover a little bit about kind of what that looks like when we're talking about reaching out to candidates. So what is intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence, right? It's a little bit of column A and column B here. I think you all can read this, right? Act purposefully, think rationally, and deal effectively with the environment. So when you combine emotional intelligence, the ability to identify emotions in self and others, something Corinne on The Bachelor didn't have, right? If you watched this season, this is super funny. If you didn't watch this season, understand that she is the worst. She was the villain of this season and was just the worst. So, but for real, right? So check this out, right? It's the ability to monitor our own and others' feelings and emotions. And then here it is, ready? To guide one's thinking and actions, right? It's not just the ability to identify, right? Identifying is great. Self-awareness is great. Awareness of other people is great. But actually guiding that into action is really the big purpose of emotional intelligence in recruiting, right? Let's solve those emotion-laden problems and regulate the behavior. And we're going to see what I mean, right? I get it. I'm a recruiter, not a doctor, but it's not actually difficult to take a pause, to look at someone and identify, okay, here are the type of people that these are, and here's how I want to interact with them, right? Here are the things that, here are the ways they want to be communicated with, I think is really going to be the biggest thing, right? Are you meeting people where you are, or are you meeting people where they are? So this is an important one, right? We hear this all the time, like, we need to use emotional intelligence, we need to use empathy, we need to connect more as humans, right? But like, why? Why do we need to do this, right? What's changed? Well, let's look at it. So this is just a general search on LinkedIn. I literally searched for recruiter, recruiting, recruitment, talent acquisition, 500,000 recruiters on the planet who are reaching out to candidates. That's crazy, right? Think of all the data that's available right now, right? All the places that people can go to find out about others, or to find out about, avenues to go for connections and networking, job postings and reaching out through like Indeed, things like Career Builder, Monster, at an all-time high. Indeed is actually doing insanely well, like record-breaking numbers, right? So people can find jobs on their own, right? The other piece is, think about all the spam that's out there, all the messaging that these people are getting on a daily basis, not just from recruiters, right? From this sale at this thing that they signed up for that one time, or that other site they went to where they gave them permission to send them emails, right? And they're just getting this bunch of crap sent out to everybody, and it winds up just being an information overload, right? It's just too much. People can't connect to any of it, and so they just get rid of all of it, right? And that's a problem, because we as recruiters, I firmly believe, we're genuinely trying to help people, right? We really are reaching out with the intent to do good. I want to believe for that, right? But if they're getting all of this data from all these other sources, what are they going to listen to? And so I actually wanted to share this as well. These are two videos. They're both lawyers. They're both injury lawyers for auto accidents. I'm just going to play them, and then afterwards, I'm just going to ask you, which one of these did you connect with the most?
I'm TV's Judge Joe Brown, and it's time we talked about the insurance company. First of all, they're not your friend. After an accident, to them, you're just a number, and their job is to pay you as little as possible for your injury. They've played this game before. Have you? Don't take a chance with your future. Put experience on your side. Tell the insurance company you mean business. Call 1-800-WIN-WIN-1. Gary Martin Hayes and Associates, right here in Atlanta.
I know, right? Just like, whoa, that's so good. Now check this one out.
It ain't pretty when you face a bad truck wreck. Greedy insurance companies play dirty. Bring it on. I'm Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer.
Go at them with Jim Adler, the tough, smart lawyer that knows how to beat them at their own game.
I stand tough and carry a big, big hammer. I thought so.
Call now, 713-777-4000, or learn more at jimadler.com.
All right, just for the record, this guy's actually a real lawyer in Houston, Texas. I'm not super proud of it, but like, that's the truth, right? So the question then that I have for you is, which of those, and you can answer, like physically answer me if you want to, which is cool, we can interact like humans. Which of those was actually more, stuck with you more? Yeah, all right. So I imagine most people are saying the second one, right? Well, if you look at it, the first one actually had more data, right? More information to it. The guy was sitting in a courtroom and he's a lawyer. The second one was some ridiculous dude holding a hammer stopping a Mack truck. Realistically, that should make no sense. It should be a no-brainer, but it's not, because we connect with the humor behind it, right? One of them is memorable. You're never going to remember the first guy that you listened to, but the Texas Law Hammer, we're all going to remember that guy. So what does the emotionally intelligent recruiter look like? The first thing I try to tell everybody, and this is, I'm talking about personal struggles. This is a personal struggle. Pause, take a second, and just take a breath and figure out, okay, where am I right now? And where is this person right now? The other way that this comes in is before I jump on the phone with someone, I pause and I do two things. I get myself super psyched up for the call, right? I'm just like, oh my gosh, this person's gonna be so awesome, right? So like I'm feeling like, oh, this is gonna be great. And then I put on a really big smile and I hit send, right? It creates a really great energy. I know that now emotionally, I'm in a really positive emotional state. And that will come across in how I speak, both the way it sounds and the words I choose to use. Two, you benefit from criticism. So if I asked everyone on this call, I bet almost unanimously everyone would say, yeah, I appreciate criticism. I like it, right? So first off, no one likes criticism. I do like receiving criticism so I can get better, right? But I'd way rather not have criticism because I was perfect at everything I did, right? So understand that like criticism comes at a cost. It's gonna hit us emotionally. It's gonna be a little tough sometimes to hear. And most of the time our immediate reaction is gonna be defensiveness or dismissal. That's okay, accept that, feel that, but realize that the criticism that comes across, even if it's brought across real nasty, is still a chance for us to grow and learn, right? I've gotten some responses to emails despite incredibly high response rates, right? I have one where I have a 53% response rate, and I still got one person writing back to me complaining about spam. And I was like, wow, I wonder what it must have been. And so I had to do a little bit of research to find out that despite his LinkedIn profile looking pretty good and me understanding how to message him, he wasn't going to be a great fit for this company. Just culture-wise, it wouldn't have fit. And had I not done research, I would not have realized that, and it would have affected my future searches, right? I'm not going to put people like that into companies like this. So just good opportunities to kind of take a moment, reflect, and learn. Give helpful feedback. I'm a big yes and person when giving feedback, right? No one wants to hear, but, right? Like, yeah, but. It's a nice way of saying like, not really, right? Yes and is collaboration, right? Oh yeah, and blah, 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 right? Like, it's a great way of giving feedback without necessarily having to say like, you did this, you did this. Another helpful hint that I give people is use something called a feedback loop. The feedback loop is a popular like therapist, psychological way to communicate, which is it's 3 steps. You identify something you saw, heard, read, or observed. You comment about the emotion tied to that. And then the story you make up in your head, right? Like, hey, Amar Preet, when I saw you write that LinkedIn post that said that Superman is better than Batman, I had a little anger about that. The story I make up in my head is that you were purposefully putting me down on LinkedIn and taking some cheap shots at me, right? Like you're not saying, Amar Preet, you did this thing. You're saying, hey, I observed this, I felt this, I made this story up in my head. It's a great way of getting to some really good feedback and doing it in an inquisitive way instead of a, what did you do? Why did you do this? Apologize, forgive, and forget. Easier said than done. I get it. It's straightforward, guys. This is hard to do. It's a challenge for everybody. When things tick us off, we naturally want to hold on to it until that person makes it right. Well, guess what? That's not always going to be the case, right? So sometimes we just have to say, all right, you know what? We have to believe that person is doing the best that they can and move on. So the 3 quick takeaways from all of this. Think about feelings. Actually think about your feelings and the feelings of where other people might be. Show authenticity. This is a really big one. I tell this story to everybody when I talk about authenticity because I think it's super funny and it's about my sister. So any chance I have to pick on her, I do that. Authenticity for me is a really big deal. And I know that you're probably thinking of a juxtaposition of a guy who goes by Batman being authentic, but the honest truth is I own it. So I am, like, take it or leave it, right? Like, enjoy. So my sister worked for New York Life for like 10 years as a financial analyst, right? Super type A, wore a suit to work every day type of a woman. And she decided, I think 2 years ago, that she wanted to leave and she really wanted a job at Bed Bath & Beyond. So she reached out to me and said, hey, I want a job at Bed Bath & Beyond. Can you help me? I was like, yeah, great. Let's draft up like a quote unquote cover letter, right? And we'll send that as an email to the hiring manager to make an intro. So she sends me the cover letter and it says, dear hiring manager, I saw your job posting on LinkedIn. I think I would be an excellent fit because of my background. What you are doing lines up very well with my career objectives and my history so far at New York Life. I look forward to hearing, right? And I'm like, what the hell is this? Right? This isn't a cover letter. Like, you could send this to anybody. And she goes, yeah, like real excited. I'm like, no. Why do you want to work at Bed Bath & Beyond? She's like, well, I have 3 kids. I shop at their store all the time. I love their products and kind of shopping there is pretty efficient. And I was like, cool. So why don't you like say that? She's like, no, I can't. I'll have you know, if you look at her profile, her name is Lauren Tenari, Lauren with a Y. She works at Bed Bath & Beyond, and she works in a role that she had no business getting. It's actually on like the supply chain management side. Why? Because the hiring manager opened the email and the resume because this letter was super authentic. It was just like, whoa, okay. She really wants it's this job, this company, right? It's this candidate, this person. Seek to employ empathy. So great example of this, and people rush through this. I encourage you, if you take something away from empathy, it's this. If you ask somebody when they answer the phone, hey, how you doing? And they go, okay. Or if you ask them, hey, how are you doing? And they're like, okay. Those are different. Identify that, right? I'm like, hey, having a tough day? What's going on? Right? People get caught off guard, like, oh, yeah, just like some stuff's happened, and be like, oh, hey, you want to talk about it? Like, we got some time, right? You're employing empathy. You're choosing to be a person relating to other people where they are, not where you are necessarily. You're jumping on the phone, you're in a rush, you've got 18 recs to fill, right? You need to get this person's info, see if they're fit for a job, get off the phone. That person doesn't. That person's having a tough day, right? And you may be the difference between that person having a better day and having, a crap day. And if you're that person, your company and your role is going to be number one in their mind. It's going to be. They have a connection with you. So there are 3 steps to actually doing the recruitment piece. We've gotten all like the touchy-feely fun stuff out of the way. Let's get into the actual steps of tactically doing this. First step, we want to establish personas. Second, analyze the data. And third, do a reach out. So establishing personas. In order to do this, I use the DISC methodology. If you're familiar with this, it like competes with like the Myers-Briggs. I find it to be more scientifically based and a little bit more tangible. These are the 4 areas. We're going to go over each of these so we can figure out what they are, and then we're going to go over how to determine that, right? So first things first, let's go through some of these profiles, right? So a dominant type person, right? You guys can read this on screen. I'm not going to read it off to you. But a dominant type person has a few different types of descriptors, right? These are typically like the alphas of a group. They are the people where when stuff hits the fan, that they're normally the person taking the step forward going, all right, guys, here's what we need to do, right? That's usually going to be the dominant type person. They're leaders a lot. They're usually hyper competitive. These are the folks who can be like a little bit type A. So those are going to be pretty dominant types of personalities. The next one is influence. This is super easy. Ready? These are the people. These are the people who are just like fun and you want to laugh, like you want to hang out with them. They're super, they're like friendly and they like joking, and that's an I. If you've ever been identified as, oh, you're such a people person, this is you. You're probably a high influence. Steadiness. So as the word describes, right, steadiness is the ability to kind of stay the course. People who really like consistency, people who like continuity. These are also tend to be really good team players, even keel type of folks. These are the folks who are typically like a rock that holds a team together, right? They're the person that people will go to for like, hey, what do I do with this? Like, hey, can you give me some advice? Really, really great for team players. And then the last is conscientious or compliant, depending on which translation you're using there. Conscientious, these are, I like compliant because they are super compliant. They follow the rules, they give you their word, then their word is bond. They operate in facts. They are super analytical about things. These are going to be the type of people who, when you hand something to them, they're like the ones going through and picking out like grammar errors on top of content errors on top of all that other stuff. They're just hyper analytical. They probably communicate in bullet points in Excel. Are going to be their two areas, right? So these are going to be the four main types, right? Just really quick going back through. We have dominant, right? Those are like the alphas. We have influence. These are the people. Steadiness. These are like the consistent team player sorts. And we have conscientious or compliant. These are the people who are the super rule followers, very just like fact and analytically based. So now we know what these are, and for anyone interested after the webinar, I'm happy to give you a little cheat sheet if you email me, and it'll have all of this data on it. But the next thing we want to do is actually analyze the data. So the data itself should tell three different stories, right? The persona is who you're reaching out to. The connection is how you're reaching out to them. And the purpose is why you're reaching out to them. So this sounds pretty surface level. It's not. The persona is straightforward, right? Who you're reaching out to. Are you reaching out to someone who's more dominant? Are you reaching out to someone who's more influential or compliant? The connection is how are you reaching out to them? Are you finding them where they are? Are you finding which social media platform they're most active on? Are you getting their personal email address? How are you physically reaching out to this person? And then purpose. Why are you reaching out to them? If the answer is because they look like a good fit for your open job, it's the wrong approach, right? That's like the obvious reason. The why should be way deeper than that, right? And what do I mean by that? So for me, as a personal example, I used to have a man bun. So like if I see a picture of someone with a man bun, I immediately am messaging them, and the entire message is about how I'm super jealous. And I usually include a picture of me with a man bun, right? Because that's a personal connection. I'm actually relating. How do you do this without having to send out one message at a time, which is what probably most people are thinking? Well, you can do it based on a search of where they go to school, what are their interests, right? Does it line up with the hiring manager, right? Are we doing that research ahead of time? Like, hey, I saw you went to UT Austin. Our hiring manager boom, LinkedIn profile. Also went to UT Austin. He's actually looking for somebody to join his team. Would be pretty cool to kind of get two of you in the same room. Any interest, right? Or maybe even look up their interests. Try to find if they have something in common there. So analyzing the data. So how do we do this, right? Like what's available to us? Well, a few different things, right? Almost everybody has a LinkedIn profile and a Facebook profile. It's commonplace. Every so often you run across people who don't, but like by and large, most people do. So let's take a look. I have 4 different profiles for us to take a look at that we're going to go over, and you can kind of look at the way they write things, and you'll see like it lines up really well with what personality type they really are, right? So this first one is my good friend, Niti Mohan. So I was super surprised when we tested her. There's no way I thought this would be the case, but when I looked at this, I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, look, I'm a highly motivated and driven talent specialist. I possess excellent communication, interpersonalization, right? I am passionate about this and this. I have achieved tremendously by exceeding my metrics, right? It talks a lot about them and their achievements and how good they are. If you look back here, that's going to be that kind of hyper D, here's how I excel, here's what I do. It's looking a lot at how do they discuss themselves, right? The next one, this is the I. This is that more like fun language, engaging type of person, right? The people person. Here's a fun one. Look for people who are engaging, use humor, and here's a big one, exclamation points. Usually an I. They're normally the only people who use them in excess. So my buddy Aaron Daniels, who if you know him, you know he is definitely an I. But when you're reading it, right? Huge advocate of veterans, heavy user of social media, and I love the thrill of the hunt, exclamation point, right? I love the thrill of the hunt. That is a super just like, yeah, type of personality, right? Oh, look, an exclamation point, super surprised, right? I'm talking about people and helping, and generally these are going to be the type of folks who you can tell like, okay, this is probably going to be a people type of person, right? Yeah. The next one we have. Nope, try again. Next one we have S, steadiness. So remember I mentioned these people make really good teammates, really supportive. Well, let's take a look then. What does that look like on a profile, right? So you can read this, supportive teamwork. They don't take the credit. Let's take a look, right? So he works at PricewaterhouseCoopers. This guy he's literally digital. He's like a lead sourcer, really, really good, pretty well known in the space. And look at his personal about. It is literally all about PricewaterhouseCoopers. There's nothing about Jason in this summary. He is all about the team and the focus. I believe if you scroll down, look, founding member of Source Houston, doesn't talk about what he does there, only talks about Source Houston, doesn't list any of the things he does. It is solely about the company and what they're doing. It's a true team player mentality. And the last one, these are the conscientious or compliant. These are just super like low fluff, straight to the point, bullet point type of using. Software engineers, generally pretty high C when they're doing it. Financial analysts, accountants, pretty high C usually. And here is my friend Claire. Look at this, ready? Her entire about. Boom. Growth focused thought leader with diverse expertise. Boom, 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 boom. Nothing written. When you come down to HCSS, it's literally this, I do this. I do this, I do this. There's no BS about it. It's super duper straightforward, right? So we can take our time and kind of go through and run through these processes. The other option is, and I know Amar Preet didn't ask me to do this, but I actually use Humantic because this takes a little bit of time. So like when you click their link, it actually shows you, hey, here's their profile, right? Here's how you talk to them, and here are things you don't, right? Look at this. Perfect, perfect. Super straightforward, super direct. Awesome, right? And it actually, if you go through them, it's pretty spot on for them, right? Team player, he's a listener and appreciative, right? Feel comfortable, don't avoid confrontation. It's a big deal when you're talking to an I. Look, highly positive attitude and outlook. It's a great, so this is what I use when I have a message like, I need to get this person in touch with me. It's super quick, obviously, as you can tell, super easy. And again, it's really, really accurate on this, right? Teamwork skills, very good. General behavior, usually friendly, right? That's a high C, where it's like they're gonna get it done, whatever that needs to be. And then the cool thing about this, sorry, Marpreet, I know I'm going through this. I'm not pitching his product. I'm showing you what it does because it's relevant to emotional intelligence, because it tells you how to communicate. The other thing I do with this product is when I have someone's background that I want to submit to a client or to a hiring manager, I pull their full DISC profile, right? So Aaron, he was the I that we were looking at. This is what Humantic actually pulls on candidates, right? So it shows their DISC, their big five, and look, super high influence. He's also pretty high steady. He's a team player, right? And it shows all about how to talk to them, their behavioral work factors. If you actually look at the full profile, it goes even further into detail about everything. And what I do with this is I just send it to hiring managers so they know, like, hey, guys, here's like the stuff you should be mindful of. Never, ever use it to discriminate or disqualify a candidate. But I certainly want to know, like, okay, hey, this is really positive. This isn't like a people person job. Maybe we should talk about this, right? Or like, oh, he's actually super conscientious. That's great, but he's not super open. We should probably talk and dig into that a little bit more. Really, really helpful stuff if what you're focused on is building a corporate culture, right? Because that's what these tools really do. You can say all day, like, I love corporate culture, our culture is really important to us, and I fire back with, well, what are you doing to test for that? What are you doing to actually align for that? To ask questions that are in alignment with not just what you're looking for, but with their background based on what you're looking for. This is the type of stuff, doing the research and or using something like Humantic kind of opens up that door to be able to do that. So that's those are kind of the examples of how I look at profiles and how I make decisions as to like just how I'm gonna message people generally, right? And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to reach out to each person with an individual email, absolutely not. That's ridiculous, right? But most of us are using some type of, whether they're email templates or messaging campaign, whatever it may be. Will I make 4 separate emails, one for each character type? Yeah, absolutely, I sure will. It's so subtle, the differences between them, and it takes like, I don't know, 5 minutes, and the 2 to 3x response rate, worth it every time. And then all I do is check real quick, add them to that email, or send that email, or add them to that campaign. It's pretty straightforward on that side. So you can also analyze companies and industry. This is going to talk a little bit about their purpose, right? So are we comparing their current company and industry to their career history? Are we doing a Google News search maybe for where they're currently working? Or are we using maybe a tool that'll help us do this, right? So one of the things I like to do is looking back, right? So looking at someone like Niti, I'm like, all right, Niti, what's your background here, right? I scroll down, I'm like, all right, HSBC, cool. And then, and she was in Calgary and Dubai. Swift Worldwide Resources, interesting, okay. More into like a recruitment agency world. And then went into more of like an RPO side, all right. That didn't seem to be a really good fit. People Scout, okay, well that actually seemed to be a pretty good one. That's awesome. Managed a bunch of people and then moved back into more of a TA type of space internally. Okay, I've now got a little bit of an idea, right? So I may do a search on Alta Mesa and just see like, all right, what's up with this company, right? Is there anything relevant that I can mention really quick? For me, I don't want to spend a bunch of time doing that. So like I use Engage Talent and I just look up really quick, like, all right, what's their deal, right? Okay, their talent retention risk is really high. Okay, that's rough. So they're probably pretty easy to be pulled from. No funding developments, no bankruptcy restructuring. Oh, their Glassdoor review. Holy smokes, career opportunities are at a 2.8. All right, so when I reach out to this person, if I really want to get them, I may say something like, hey, we have a bunch of really great career opportunities. We foster, organic growth internally, and this role has a really great career path. Would love to talk to you about that. Like, this is awful. This is awful. This should be like prime picking ground, right? And if we know it, we can actually reach out and we can message, right? This tool also shows competitors, which I think is cool, right? But like, oh, have you thought about reaching out to these companies as well to find candidates if you like this person? So I'm like, okay, great. So now when I'm reaching out to Niti, I can say, hey, Niti, communicate in a very high D type of way, right? Short, straight to the point, and then mention kind of what I've learned. Hey, I'm just doing a search. Is career, growth or pathway, is that something you're really interested in? I definitely have a clear-cut path here and someone I'm looking for to kind of fill that role. The next is, are we looking at groups, meetups, and conferences? If your answer is yes to this, please reach out to me afterwards because I want to hire you. Most people don't do this, mostly because it's kind of a pain in the butt. But if you need to get someone and you really want them to respond to you, this is going to be probably the best way to do it, right? We want to figure out, like, how are they spending their time? What do they want to learn or be a master at? And by the way, this doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, I'm looking for a .NET developer, like what .NET groups are they in? No. Are you asking your hiring manager, hey, what meetup groups are you in? What do you do on the weekends? Right? And don't say like, I go clubbing and drink vodka, right? Like that, like, what do you do? What are your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing? Imagine how much better that connection's going to be when you reach out to a candidate. You're communicating in a way that they best receive, and you're creating a personal connection as a reason to actually reach out to this person beyond you do this thing, I need someone who does this thing, right? And so for this, I actually use a tool called Human Predictions. Super cool tool. It's generally only used for technology. So if you're not doing tech recruiting, it may not be the best fit. But for example, we can look up Aaron Daniels. He's if you remember, he was the high I that we talked about earlier. And when we look him up, it gives us access to look, all of his social sites, right? So you can check him out on Stack Overflow or Twitter. He has an About Me page. And we can go and kind of see like, all right, what's this guy up to? Oh, look, this gives us access to his Meetup page. If you don't use Connectify or social links, guys, download this like immediately. It's a Chrome extension that gives you social links for people on a bunch of different sites. It's free. So check this out also. And look, I can go to their Meetup groups and I can see, hey, Aaron, what Meetup groups are you in? He's a member of 4 of these. The Houston Recruiter Meetup group. Cool. Oh, he seems to have a pretty big interest in data science. Interesting. Oh, and look, interest. Oh, he's Christian. Okay, that's cool. He's into a lot of staffing stuff. All right, interesting. But I've learned he likes to travel. He's a Christian, and he's big into like that young professional space, right? So hey, guess what? If my company has a lot of PTO days, I'll probably mention this is a great environment for people who love to travel. We offer X amount of PTO. Is this something you're interested in? Right? We don't have to go full creepy with it, right? We don't have to be like, oh, I found you and then I went to your About Me and then I used this to go to your meetup.com and it said one of your interests was travel. That's creepy as hell. Don't do that, right? But you can say, hey, this is something we offer. Is this something you might be interested in? The other piece that I use this for is if, for example, your hiring manager is into, I don't know, soccer, right? You can literally search through meetup groups for soccer. And you can find, hey, these are all the people who are in meetup groups, wherever it is, who have soccer as one of their interests in the meetup group. Eventually, this might work. Yeah, right? And then you can also do searching based on, technology or whatever the heck else you want to show. But the goal behind this is you narrow your search down and you're actually analyzing meaningful data, right? These are C# developers who are in a meetup group about soccer. Guess how impactful that message is going to be? Your response rate is going to be through the roof, right? Hey, saw you were interested in soccer. I checked your meetup group out. That's so funny. Our hiring manager, blank, is also also plays soccer. Do you play in any intramural leagues? Oh, either way, it'd be great to connect. We're actually looking for somebody, whether you're looking now or not, right? Like, that's such a great message. There's no one who's going to respond back to you and say unsubscribe, right? Spam. It's very clearly not spam, but look, you could send it to 100 people and they're going to have that same feeling of like, oh, wow, right? Like, oh, Carrie sent this message just to me, right? Or, oh, wow, Melissa wrote this message with me in mind, right? This was not like a for everybody. This was a my message. And that's what's going to generate you that huge response, right? It's that feeling. It's that emotion. It's joy. Oh, wow, this person's writing to me. I'm important. I'm special. And that's what we want to relay to people, right? Because everyone's special. Everyone's a little snowflake, and we want to respect that. Next. Okay. So, and people can feel free to share if they want to. Is there anybody who feels uncomfortable about using Facebook for recruiting? I'm checking the chat right now. So if anybody does, feel free to chat it. There's no shame. There's no wrong answers. I'm not allowed. Oh, all right. Can you elaborate on that? I'm super intrigued. I haven't gotten that one. Quit Facebook last year. Yeah, Saurabh, I was actually off Facebook for like a year and a half, but once I started using it more actively for recruiting and realizing the benefits, I got back on it, and I only have it professionally. So I'm literally friends with people from my church and from work, and that is it. Can't use Facebook at work. Oh, that's obnoxious. All right. I mean, I don't have a great answer for you. I use it to analyze data all the time and to find some of these like subtle interests when I reach out. It would be a little bit more difficult. I guess you could technically do it from your phone, but like that'd be a little bit of a pain in the butt. So here's what I want to look at, right? When I'm looking at people's profiles, I'm literally analyzing all of this data. Does it actually confirm their persona type, right? Like, is it accurate, or like, or is it not lining up with what I gleaned from LinkedIn? If you're using Humantech, you don't really have to do that. It's pretty sweet. How do they spend their free time, right? Super great to know. I want to know a little bit about them. Where have they lived and visited? Maybe they're from the same place as your hiring manager, or from you. How cool would that be, right? What do you guys have in common? How do you use Facebook to reach out to accounting and finance? So I don't use it to reach out. I'll state that right now. I do not message through Facebook. I do not want to be friends with my candidates. It's no offense to them. It's just not my bag. I use it to gather information and data for messaging. This is my only thing I do. I'm using it to gain an emotionally intelligent advantage over my competitors, and to basically make it so I don't have to send as many messages to get good candidates, right? Also, I want to see where they're most active in terms of platform. If they're most active on Facebook, I can mention something about their Facebook because it wouldn't be weird because they're so active. If they're not, I would maybe not mention it and just casually go through it, right? So the question is, well, does that really work? Let's find out. So this is the D. This is Niti Mohan, right? We already discussed she is a high D. And take a look. Here are her photos. You'll notice something very similar about all of her photos. Niti, 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 Niti. Oh, look, it's Niti. Look, Niti's in her photo. Niti. Look, it's Niti. It's Niti. You kind of getting the hint here, guys? Oh, she's in almost all of them, or they're like an event, right? High Ds tend to be the selfiers, right? A little focus here, and that's pretty standard, right? And then I'd probably want to go and check out a little bit just about her, where she's from, she lives in the Woodlands. Holy crap, I live in the Woodlands. I should totally reach out to her, right? But we're friends, so I want to check that stuff. And so, do I use this to reach out? No. But do I know now that she's a high D? I sure do. What else can I also tell? She is, okay, she's big into female empowerment, right? So if I have a strong D&I culture, I may mention that. Celebrates Diwali. So if you know what time of year that is, you can look it up, right? It looks like some sort of meditation or yoga. If you guys have like a wellness program, maybe you mentioned that. Yeah, so you can tell a lot just by looking at just simply photos about how to reach out to people. RA, you asked a question. What is your capture rate with LinkedIn? Can you elaborate on what you mean when you say that? In the meantime, I will head back to here and wait for your response there. Same thing, if we're looking now at the person in the high eye, Aaron, take a look at the photos. These are all like event, fun, all over the place, funny photo with a dog, him making funny faces and partying, right? Family photos. Oh, look, me, that's fun. Right, just a lot of like party, feel good, haha, cheeky smile, right? Like life of the party. Yeah, I mean, like, this is a high eye, right? Like this says it all right here. High eye. Next, let's take a look at the S, right? This is the steadiness. This is Jason. He's the person who's team player, all about other people, supporting others. So let's take a look. Ready? Jason, and that's the same picture. So most of these are actually about, oh, these are even photos of Jason, excuse me. We actually click on this. Yeah, so take a look. Positive quote, picture about his daughter, a bunch of food in the back of his car, picture of his daughter, like these are all photos of other things, of other people, right? These are other recruiters, Steve Levy and Shannon Pritchett, right? He's just very outwardly focused, not inwardly focused. It's normally how you can tell a high S. And then a high C, so Rob, I'll get you in 2 seconds. A high C, you'll laugh at this. That's a high C right there. These are all of her photos. Just not her thing, right? She's straight, she's analytical, she's to the point, I don't need pictures, boom, move on. There's literally insanely limited information here. When you see something like this, you can assume you're just like, all right, there's a bunch of C in there with this person. Now to address your question. Oh, sorry, the question, if you're not reading, is do you share these soft attributes or observations generated through Humantic or my own observations when you pitch the candidate to your client? And what's the response you hear from the company HRs for this type of soft info or data? I do not share this data unless it's coming from something like Humantic. When I do share the data, so like I send over a Humantic profile for every submission I make, but it's clear to me whether the manager wants to interview the candidate or not, only based on the resume. So when I send it over, the goal of the Humantic profile is not to disclude or exclude candidates. It's solely to learn how to speak with them, how to learn what points we have where we could sell really well, right? Like if they're a high I, I know that, and we have a great fun culture, we can sell that. That's great. Conversely, if they're a high I and we're like a heads down cube farm, I may want to bring that up. It's like, hey, just FYI, you know, you seem like a really fun person, you blah, 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 like our environment here is this something you'd be interested in? It is not used to disqualify candidates. There are some HR companies, like I worked with Whole Foods for a while, and I couldn't send the Humantic profile until after the manager confirmed they did or didn't want to interview the candidate. Then I could send it over. RA, before you used Humantic and after, you reach out to X and you get a connection with Y and Z. With Y and Z are converted. What is my capture rate with LinkedIn? I'm not sure I understand, RA, sorry. You can always jump in and unmute yourself and we can talk about it also. That's totally cool. The Davises love it. When you are creating a list of common attributes, what tools do you use to store them in one place before sending out? So this is a great question, but you're going to hate the answer to this. I am a Google Sheets person. I don't overcomplicate things. I keep it really simple here. Like I'm happy to open one up and show you. Oh, let's go back so I'm not actually disrupting the presentation. Here, I'll actually show you exactly how I keep track of this. Because it's a great question, right? Like you want to track this data and find out who does what, where do people go, right? So the first thing that I do is I want to go Airbnb, I think. It's the last one I did this for. Yeah. So first I do my pre-search info, right? Where I have the role, the manager, all the like, this is the normal stuff that you're going to wind up getting during the intake session. But here's the fun stuff, right? I want to do some like what we'll call research, other people call stalking, like whatever, on the team and the manager, right? So check it out. I actually have like where they grew up, their interests, etc. And this is what I gained from going to their meetup groups and looking at their pictures and going to their Facebook profile. So I keep it here for my search reference. Now, when I'm messaging people, I actually use an email automation tool. So you have a couple of choices. If you use an email automation tool like Interstellar or Gem or HubSpot or any of those, just create your sequences in there and then add people to them. If you don't, just use spreadsheets like I was just using and separate them based on candidates personality types based on the role. So I can show you an example of how I keep candidates generally. Let's do this one. So it's a D&I search, right? So this is how I'm generally keeping my candidates. And if I wanted to separate via D, I, S, and C, I'm not doing outreach on this, so I'm not. This is how I separate. I just keep them in these different tabs, and then I write out my templates, right? Here's the D, here's the I, here's the S, here's the C. So here's the deal. When you're actually writing out your templates, they're really not that different, right? So for example, I think I have Whole Foods. Yeah, so Whole Foods, right? This is for a software developer engineer in Austin, right? So it's 48% reply, 92% open rate. It was only to 25 people, but who cares? If you're getting that type of response rate, same as getting a 13% response rate to 100 people. So check it out. Amazon code payroll, food and health. And this is literally, if you say in here, I saw from the meetup groups you're in and your background that you fit the bill, right? So I'm mentioning that I saw they're in a meetup group around food or wellness. And it's literally that straightforward. So as I find people who fit this interest background, I add them right as a contact right into this sequence, right? And you'll notice in here, this message is actually not that much different than the standard message you would send out for the same type of role. You're just mentioning that one piece. So the change that you make to make it really personal isn't actually that much different if you look at it. So great question. That's usually how I approach that because the organization piece is really important. All right, so now we covered looking at Facebook photos. Yeah, no problem. Loading. Great. All right, computer is in struggle mode. So we're running close to time, but I want to at least show you this. When we're emailing dominant types, here's the deal, guys. Just be brief and to the point. Pretend like you're talking to someone from New York City who's in a rush. Boom, 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 right? This, and this, go, right? When you're leaving a voicemail, same thing. Be super upfront. Hey, here's who I am. Here's my number. Here's why I'm giving you a call. Here's what I want you to do, right? Can you please call me back? I want to discuss X and Y and Z. For influence, be yourself, right? Have fun with it, right? Talk about them. Use things like, hey, this cool article I saw, right? Exclamation point. Be friendly, be fun, right? I always try to think of this as like pretend like you're talking to like that like surfer dude in Hawaii, right? It's like, oh yeah, what are you doing? That's great. Same thing when you're leaving voicemails or talking to them, smile. It's okay to like laugh and be funny on the phone. These are the people who are going to really connect with that. For steadiness, this is going to be like the really even keel, be really polite. These are going to be, Carrie, adorable. You can email me. I can send you a bunch of this stuff via email. I don't share necessarily all the slides, which is a bunch of GIFs and images, but I can send you all the content from this if you email me. So, right, this is just going to be like really straightforward, really polite. These are going to be the people you may want to stick to being like a little bit more professional with, right? A little bit more white bread. Talking to them on the phone, these are going to be the just relax. Take a deep breath. This isn't talk quickly. This isn't talk loud. This is just a very even tone. Be comfortable. Allow your voice to be comfortable, and they'll respond best to that. Conscientious. Just, guys, don't BS with this person. Don't be haha. Don't wish them that they're having a good day. Don't jump in with, hey, how are you doing? Just jump into it. Give them the crap. Go. And that's all they're going to want, right? These people love bullet points. So again, when you're talking to them, we want to make sure that we're just being really quick, really calm, really professional. Boom, 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 and out. And in case you thought I was totally full of it and making all of this up, here are my references for all this stuff. Does anybody have any questions? That's my email. I did go crazy fast. Yeah, that's kind of my style. Oh, just so everyone knows, because I really suck at self-promotion. I just don't like it. I like helping more than I like promoting. Wayne Technologies is my company. I do contract recruiting and recruitment training, which is I guess how I make my monies. So if that's something y'all are interested in, obviously feel free to reach out. What was the name of the social media extension? It was called Connective Fire Social Links, I think, right? Is that the deal here? Social Fire. So, yeah, that's exactly right. Connect Fire Social Links. Anything else? Floor is open.
Okay,
Iron Man is not the best man. So Robin, and here's why. This is a great point you bring up, which I hear all the time. So here's the deal. If both Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne were stripped down into their knickers and thrown into an arena together, who would win? You can't argue Tony Stark. There's no way that you can argue Tony Stark, right? So if you're right, of course, thank you, the Davises. So here's the deal. If you're like, oh, who's got the more effective toys? Yeah, Iron Man, 100%. I can't argue with that point. But what I can tell you is the human, like the person behind all the toys, who's actually better, oh, without any question, it's Batman. You want to know how I know, Sir Rob? Because Iron Man dies. Sorry, if you haven't seen Endgame, I just ruined the entire movie for you. But yeah, take that. Yeah, that was, you're right. That was low, but that's where it is. Yep. That's where I'm at, guys. Sorry, that's, you threw it out there, Sir Rob. You threw down the gauntlet. Any other questions or anything, guys? Awesome. Feel free to reach out, be in touch. Anything I can do to help, obviously, don't hesitate.
Okay, guys, we'll wrap up. Mike, thank you so much. I mean, I know you had your game figured out, but wow, I don't think I've seen, all of it earlier. So now I know, how you get your 40, 50, 60% response rates. So folks, I hope this was useful. Mike shared a bunch of his secrets, tricks. His mail ID is there. I'll anyway be mailing out this recording. I'll share his mail ID once again. And yeah, as Mike said, so you know, all of this, it really, really helps you, you know, get those response rates up, you know, get the conversion up. Candidates, you know, I got a mail a couple of days ago from someone, and you know, there's no reason for me to look at a mail that's just a standard template. You know, there's a much easier way to connect with that person, and that's what we try to make super easy with Humantic. You know, once you're at Mike's level, you can just look at someone's LinkedIn and figure out, you know, their D's and I's and C's, you will. But otherwise, you know, for you and your teams, it's a really, really easy way to, you know, see what kind of a person someone is, what do they really value, because a position should be about what they value and not, you know, what we think they might value or not. So with that, thank you very much. Wrapping up here, we'll be sending the recording out, you know, within a few hours, or max, you know, within a day.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone so much for joining.
This was fun, guys. Hope y'all learned something, and definitely be in touch.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.